Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful February 27th, 2019. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it was a beautiful day in Black History today to see an oversight committee in Washington, D.C. run by an African-American male, Elijah Cummings, Charlton, the most powerful man in the House of Representatives, Charlton, overseeing a hearing today.
Yes.
Overseeing the Oval Office of the United States. And I look at what this brings as far as what Black America has gotten to in this country, Charlton.
Yeah.
That it's a country that shows promise, that we can ascend to all heights.
Yep.
And Elijah Cummings, being the professional congressman that he is, Charlton, overseeing this great committee where they had the president's former lawyer,
Yep.
Michael Cohen, who
Yep.
the president raved about for such a long time. But after he got tired of covering for the president,
Yeah.
the president wanted to throw him under the bus.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
looked at the Republicans, Charlton, who were challenging Michael Cohen today.
Yeah.
At not one point during this hearing did they ever defend the president. They only challenged Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to defend a liar, Charlton,
Yeah.
but you can always attack somebody.
Yep.
And that's what I brought more from this hearing today than anything, is that the Republicans refused to defend the president.
Yep.
They only wanted to attack Michael Cohen.
Yeah, and they kept doing it time and time again. But history will always tell who's on the right side of the universe. Big C, I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. And, you know, so much happened when you see the White House was built by black men. A lot of people may not know that. This is a great country. I don't want to see anything bad happen to our country. But sometimes let the truth be what it is. No matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, even if you're the president's staunchest advocate, do you want to know the truth or do you want them lying to you? And that's all for Congress to decide. But I think what you saw and what you...
Charlton,
yeah.
didn't you say Jack Nicholson said that in the movie, You Can't Handle the Truth?
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I think it was the great Tom Cruise and the great Jack Big C. But obviously, I watched some of Fox News also, Big C, and I saw Hanley was over there and across across the seas in Vietnam and waiting for the president to speak. It's ironic how we just found out today that President Trump told Michael Cohen that he lied about the shin splints that got him out of the war. Big C, to drop your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, he lied about everything. You know, he goes to Vietnam now, but he didn't want to go to Vietnam 50 years ago.
No, right.
And he uses whatever lie that he could, Charlton, just like he had Michael Cohen threaten all the different schools that he had gone through throughout his time of getting an education about releasing his SATs and
Yeah.
his grades, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, you know, here's a man as Michael Cohen. Yes, he's been convicted for lying, Charlton, lying to Congress that the president pointed out that he should do.
Yeah.
But this man knows so much over a 10-year span. You don't spend 10 years with anybody
No.
and not know everything about him, Charlton.
Yeah.
And especially if you're the attorney representing him and doing all that dirty work.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just showed me how Congress wanted to perpetuate a lie today, Charlton,
Yeah.
by attacking a man. Yes, if he goes in and lies to Congress this time, Charlton, it's going to extend his prison sentence.
Yeah.
So he had nothing to gain by going in. His sentence is already set in stone, the time that he's going to serve, Charlton.
Yeah.
But he could have added to that sentence by lying.
Yeah.
The things that Michael Cohen said today, he had already told to the Southern District of New York, as well as Robert Mueller.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything new. He had said it in private under those investigations before.
Yeah.
Him coming out in the public spotlight in front of Congress today, Charlton, just shed light on the things that a lot of people thought they already knew.
Yeah.
But not only that, Charlton, he brought in physical evidence to corroborate
Yeah.
what he was saying. That was the hardest and most damning thing to get around.
Yep.
Congress could not dispute, from a Republican's perspective, what he had in writing.
Yeah.
And he has even more things. One senator tried to challenge and said, well, shouldn't that have been in the hands of investigators? Well, investigators took everything, Charlton, but
Yeah.
they copied it, and they had to return back his property.
Yeah.
That's what they had to do. So he went through his property and found these things, Charlton, and presented them.
Yeah.
So they could not get around that. They couldn't skirt around and say it should have been in the hands of investigators.
Yeah.
They already had it, Charlton.
They already had it. I think it's ironic when men will ask them about a relationship with their spouse. You know, some people have open marriages. They don't always say that they have an open marriage. And some people pay $35,000 or $130,000 to make sure. Okay, if you have an open marriage, do you pay someone $135,000 to be quiet, Big C? I just want to understand that.
Well, Charlton, I think that should almost buy a condo for somebody, $135,000, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, you know, here it is. You're challenging this man.
Yeah.
On the relationship he has with his wife, and not speaking about the president's affairs that he was covering for.
Yeah.
This is what I meant, is that they were asking Combs questions about himself and saying that he was untruthful.
Yeah.
But the evidence that they had that was overwhelming against the president, they never challenged. They never said, well, why did the president ask you to pay off this porn star?
Yeah.
Why did the president ask you to write these threatening letters? They never asked those questions, what they have evidence of, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they never asked him, why did the president tell him or instruct him to lie or mislead Congress when he came in when it was held by Republicans?
Yeah. I always think it's funny when men in Congress, or any man anywhere, in fact, will ask another man, did you cheat on your spouse? Isn't it true that you had an adulterous relationship? Well, I wish he would ask those same men asking them questions, have you ever cheated on your spouse? Because you are under oath. Would that make sense? Would that be fair, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I would have loved for them to ask, did the president cheat on his wife?
Right.
That would have been the perfect question to ask, Charlton.
Yeah.
But to deflect from the president, they asked him about his
own wife.
Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's crazy.
Everyone has seen what the president has had in the media spotlight about the alleged affairs that he's had with the porn stars, with the Playboy bunnies, Charlton.
Yeah.
Even the president's second wife, Charlton, Marla Maple.
Yeah.
He was having an affair with her while he was married to his first wife.
And the reality is, Big C, when you think the happiest man today, maybe not the happiest, is Bob Kraft, because that's what all those guys do. It's nothing new. It's only new when they pretend like, oh my God, you're the first person in the history of the universe to ever do that. That's what most men in power do. And we know that, and maybe even women.
Look how they treated the black man who did it, Charlton, Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
You know, they treated Tiger Woods like he was the most villainous person in America for having an affair. Tiger Woods wasn't paying $130,000 to a woman to have an affair like the president was.
Yeah.
You know, so he wasn't going into a massage parlor like Robert Kraft was.
Yeah.
So, you know, you think about how a black man was villainized a decade ago, Charlton, for having an extramarital affair. He wasn't going into a seedy massage parlor, Charlton, that was a front for human sex trafficking.
Well,
he wasn't paying off adult film stars, Charlton.
No.
While his wife was at home with an infant child.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm just waiting for Gloria Allred to show up and try to make some money off of somebody. She's like the ambulance chaser in the law firm's Big C. I want to get on some thinking about, even today, I know there's a Michael Clark hearing. I guess the verdict's going to come out soon. The young kid up in Sacramento that was fatally shot 22 times last year. And now there are even some sports shows around Northern California that say, we don't talk politics, we only talk about sports because we're dumb. Now they're talking about that. They're actually bringing on other people to talk about it. I just hope that people remain calm. You probably already know what the verdict's going to be. We've seen it so many times. Even if they shot him 100 times, they would have said, well, it was justified. I mean, I don't know, but history's already shown us probably what we're going to hear. But I want to get your thought on this. Many sports programs, because they lack content, they're spilling at least a good 30 minutes of their time taking call-ins. Call-ins meaning you don't have a producer, but that call-in they'll screen, somebody's screening that caller saying, this is what you can talk about, don't change it or we'll cut you off, that 7-second delay. Do you find that they're getting their political slant from a ubiquitous person, the mainstream audience that calls in, because they don't want to stand behind what they really feel? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, haven't it always been that way? I mean, if you think about the motherships, whenever there's a political situation that's edgy, they'll always bring in Harry Edwards, especially when it deals with African-American content.
Yeah.
You've seen that so many times, Charlton, is that you go get someone who is not contracted with the broadcast network,
station,
and they'll bring him in, and they'll say, well, this is his opinion, even though these are the things that they want to say.
Right.
They don't want to label or shackle one of their employees with saying that on air, Charlton, because then they're going to have to fire him.
Yeah, who was that
So
great?
it's always been the scapegoat of the media, Charlton, to do a call-in or do a guest.
Yeah.
Have this guest opinion. And they'll always say the opinions of this guest are not, directly contributed to this broadcast.
Right, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They put a disclaimer in there, Charlton. So when I hear a lot of the people now, Charlton, on various sports shows and all that, and they'll talk about the same thing all over and over. If you're in a town where you have an NFL team, Charlton, they're going to talk about who should the team cut, who should they keep.
Yeah.
Who's a hot commodity at the combine, Charlton. If you got an NBA team, well, we're looking at next year. Are we tanking? Who's the big guy in college that we can bring in to turn around the program?
Right.
And if you're in a team that really without, anything to talk about, Charlton, as you say, you take calling and you take these yahoos, they're halfway through a 12-pack when they call in. And they start spewing questions that mean nothing. Because they're sitting there and they're frustrated. Well, I think the team should cut this guy because
fire everybody
during the football season that he didn't perform up to his money.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible, but that seems to be the new way to steal content. They get it from people who just call in and don't even have those. They don't know if those people have been drug tested or anything. And one more thing I want to bring up is whenever they do that, they have the person say this is, Joe from San Francisco or Bill from, San Jose. But they don't say what their background is, why they're even credible to call in and give their opinion on something. Speaking of being credible and criticizing people's performance, the NFL today, you think about this, 2 years ago, we had a player who was the MVP of the Super Bowl up in Minneapolis, Nick Foles. Well, he's released today by the Eagles today. He's officially a free agent. But I've got to get your thoughts. The Eagles, for some reason, they can't stand success. They hadn't been to the Super Bowl since Donovan McNabb took them there, and they lost to the Patriots back in the day. But they let go of a Super Bowl MVP to keep a guy who hasn't been healthy even since his senior season in college, and Carson Wentz. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the second Super Bowl winning quarterback to move this offseason. The Eagles let go of Carson Wentz because the franchise tagging, they would have to give him $20 million, Charlton.
Nick Foles,
the Eagles are already $14 million over the cap, so they couldn't afford it. And they couldn't take the chance that a team would trade for him, Charlton, if they put a $20 million price tag on it. So they let him go. This gives Carson Wentz the opportunity, Charlton, to go to a system that's going to be to his liking. I think the first place that he'll look, Charlton, is Jacksonville. Everybody knows that Jacksonville is not pleased with Blake Bortles.
You think Nick Foles will fit in down there?
Pedigree
and Nick
from Nick Foles if you try to bring him in.
Yeah. So if Carson Wentz, and I know he's like that person that they put all their marbles and chips behind him. But he was hurt his senior season at North Dakota State. He was also injured last year at the Coliseum in L.A. against the Rams. He's injured again this year. So if 3 years of watching him play football, they've seen him not make it through a season. But Nick Foles was MVP. He wasn't just a journeyman that came on and helped them win like a Jeff Hostetler back in the day with the New York Giants. This is a guy that balled out MVP. And in fact, when they went on their run this year, it was Nick Foles that helped them go in and almost beat New Orleans Saints down in New Orleans. That's not the guy you let go. But I know money's money. But why is having that contract more important than having the guy who actually won? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they couldn't afford the contract. If you think about it, like I said, they're $14.5 million already over the salary cap. You sign Nick Foles, you're $35 million over the salary cap. Now, to keep him, you got to go in and release 4 to 5 players, Charlton, that were starters.
Yeah.
You have to deplete your lineup to keep him in your lineup. That's one of the integral things now about professional sports, Charlton, is maneuvering through the salary cap.
Yeah.
There's cap hits that you take every time you release a player. You have dead money that you're not allowed to use without paying that luxury tax on it.
Yeah.
When you look at Philadelphia, You still have Carson Wentz under his rookie contract, even though he has not been able to complete a season in the last three that he has played. That's a big challenge for Philadelphia now. Are they going to go out and draft another young quarterback, Charlton, in the mid-rounds to have as a backup? Because I don't know if Sudfeld can carry the weight there in Philadelphia. So they're going to have to look at some depth at the quarterback position. You also got to understand there are going to be free agent veteran quarterbacks out there, Charlton.
Yeah.
Do you take a chance on one of them? But Philadelphia just could not afford to keep the two quarterbacks on the roster financially, and this is what the new NFL is.
Yeah.
How do you manage your money?
Yep, they decided to get rid of the guy that MVP and won, and to keep the guy that gets hurt every year. He'll get hurt again next year, hopefully not, but that's his pattern. I want to take you to another team with a bird on their helmet, Big C. All the experts in the draft combine, they're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and is Josh Rosen going to be the quarterback? And here's a guy that had 100 yards passing in one game last year, as well as when he was at UCLA, he was injured. He just can't seem to stay healthy. But we know they need to go after the kid out of Oklahoma because he just fits their system, Big C. Give me your thoughts on, again, this the truth, like we talk about Congress. Do you want the truth or do you want the lie? Rosen's not NFL ready, and he may not be for the next 2 or 3 years. Why not just say, no, we're moving on and looking for somebody to let your other teammates know, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Cardinals GM, Steve Keimis, made the statement that Josh Rosen is our quarterback for now.
Yep.
And that's, as we know, once you turn the light switch off and turn it back on, you don't know who's going to be in the room.
Yeah.
And that's basically the blind statement that he was making to the media, Charlton.
Yeah.
For now, the draft hasn't been held yet.
Yeah.
But Josh Rosen, if they don't keep him, Charlton, they may end up trading him for another draft pick. But you look at the situation for the Arizona Cardinals, Charlton.
Yeah.
The NFL is about winning now. It's not about building a team for 4 or 5 years down the road. It doesn't work. Just as we talked about with Nick Foles, there's salary cap implications, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you're going to go young with an NFL team, Charlton, you got to go young at every position.
Yeah.
First, second, and third-year players because they're not up for salary renegotiation.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to bring in all these veteran players, Charlton, and say, hey, we don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
But if you draft a quarterback, Charlton, you have him under that rookie contract for 5 years.
Yep.
And so you're not going to pay him more than $30 million over that 5 years. So you draft that rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And you let them compete against each other. But if you bring in Cliff Kingsbury as a coach, now this is the same coach, Charlton, that had Baker Mayfield, who was the first overall draft pick at Texas Tech. He got beat out by Patrick Mahomes, who was NFL's most valuable player.
Yeah.
Kingsbury coached both of those guys, and he said Kyler Murray, who he has watched
is better
since he was 12 years old, is better than both of those players, Charles.
Yeah.
So why would you not draft Kyler Murray if you brought in Cliff Kingsbury as a coach to run that type of system?
That makes a lot of sense. And we know it's about personality, it's about money and who you like. But at some point in time, who's the guy? Was it Woody Nelson? You got to know when to hold him, know when to fold him, know when to walk away, and know when to run. He sang that song, and I think it could be said about...
That was Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers? Okay, Kenny Rogers. I sang the song too, Big C, but no one gives me credit for it. But you got to know that sometimes people aren't working out, and you cut ties and wish them well. I think it's happened to a player who was in the same boat several years ago, the great Johnny Manziel, played at Texas A&M, Heisman Trophy winner. I guess he called him Money Manziel. But he was just out of Canada. I guess they let him go, and he can't compete. He can't be picked up by another Canadian team. But at one time, he was the NFL's choice for the next prodigal child to come out of college and light the NFL on fire. It didn't work out that well for Manziel. I still wish him well, but he has some off-the-field things too. But do you see that they're always looking for that next Manziel, and they're going to try to force his way into being successful like they're trying to do Rosen down in Arizona? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think 6 years ago, I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it has been 6 years ago since Johnny Manziel was the darling of the college football world and the talk of the NFL draft, Charlton, where he was going to come in and be a savior of a franchise. He was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. He won 2 games in his career there with the Cleveland Browns and only lasted 2 seasons in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was kicked out of the league basically, Charlton, because he was suspended for domestic violence amongst other things.
Yeah.
He went to Canada, Charlton, last year. He was released by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He ended up in Montreal. And today he was banned by the commissioner of the Canadian Football League from playing in the league.
I wonder why.
Because of the contract thing that he broke, Charlton.
Yeah.
They didn't, specific on it, but he broke the rules of a contract that he had with the league, so he can no longer play in the Canadian Football League, Charlton. I don't know what's going to happen with this issue. They have the AAF that's there. They have the XFL that's coming back into play, Charlton. Will he get one more shot with one of those fledgling leagues?
Yeah.
But he is not coming back to the NFL, Charlton. He's been a cancer as far as NFL brass is concerned because he cannot comply with NFL standards and code of conduct.
Yeah.
So he'll never see the NFL again, Charlton.
Well, that's interesting because they put a lot of hope into him. And again, I hope the kid, Jackson, over there in Baltimore, come out of Louisville, I hope that he can have, if you think about how successful he was as the most unwanted quarterback, Big C, out of college. I mean, a guy that won a Heisman Trophy, who was really dominant at Louisville. Once he left Louisville, Louisville's never been the same. But he was so maligned by NFL, the brass guys in the NFL who decide where a player goes, even media. But his record, I think he went 7-1 in his final 8 games, and then they lost the playoff game to the Chargers that just, caught him on a day. That they beat him on that day. But he's had the most success of any of the rookie quarterbacks that came in, especially he didn't get to play till halfway through the season and cost the guy who won a Super Bowl his job. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you talk about all the preponderance that evaluate players, your buddies McShay and Kiper, and the Raiders' new GM, Mayock, who said that he should be changing position, that he wasn't ready for the NFL. Now, think about this.
Yeah.
The Raiders hired a guy who said that Lamar Jackson was not ready to play quarterback in the NFL, that maybe he should switch to wide receiver or defensive back.
Yeah.
Now, this goes along with the buffoon that they have as a head coach.
Yeah.
Now, your GM could not evaluate a quarterback.
Yeah.
He just said Derek Carr is the franchise quarterback, but he couldn't evaluate quarterbacks coming out of college.
Right.
So this lets me know the state of the Raiders franchise right now, that you got 2 guys, a guy who can't coach, who traded away all the franchise players.
Everybody.
You bring in this GM who said that the most successful rookie quarterback last year shouldn't be playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And he said that Josh Allen was the best prospect, the Buffalo quarterback, in the draft.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that the Raiders have pinned their hopes on in the future to run their franchise. So Lamar Jackson, who blew away all the preponderance out there saying he should not be an NFL quarterback, Charlton, with his success, got Joe Flacco traded, a former Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah.
But, he was a black kid, Charlton, so what do you expect?
Yeah, and I like the fact that you could bring things up, and I would hope that mainstream media will at least come on and say, hey, we missed that one. We were wrong on Jackson. They're still trying to find out. Murray hasn't even been drafted yet. They're trying to say that he shouldn't play in the NFL, or they want maybe he's not big enough, or he's not something. I think the guy only lost 1 game in high school, and then he only won when he lost in college. It was only to Texas. And that big, that shootout they had down in the Cotton Bowl, and then he lost to Alabama. That was it. And in fact, in the last 3 quarters, he outperformed Alabama's defense. So what Clemson did to them was really not much of a stretch because they'd already seen Murray do it in the last 3 quarters. I don't care how tall he is, how heavy he is, how big his hand size is, Big C. If the guy can play, he can play. And I hope that they don't malign him the way they did everybody else.
How big was Ryan Leaf when he was drafted right after Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Coming out of Washington State. Well, he's 6'5", 235, huge hands, huge arms, poor football IQ, and everybody loved him.
Yeah, everybody loved him, and we know what happens. Just give people the chance to play. That's all that matters. Big C, I want to look at another sport, Major League Baseball. They made a request to the Nevada Gaming Board that Major League Baseball not bet on spring training games. What's the point of the Supreme Court making betting legal and everything, but they don't want you to bet on spring training games? That's when guys are trying to make a team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the reason for that is because a lot of pitchers in spring training experiment with pitches, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you really can't control the betting on that. You think about it, a guy said, well, I'm just going to work on this breaking pitch today that I've had trouble with all year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he leaves several of them hanging over the plate, Charlton, and that's producing runs.
Yeah.
It would be very easy to fix a spring training game, Charlton. Very easy. Because it doesn't count in the final standings.
Yeah.
You're not out there trying to win the game, Charlton. You're out there trying to improve your stuff, get ready and get in condition for the season.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball sees that as a problem. Not just for the gamblers, but for the players, Charlton. Because if I got a pitcher is going out there betting against himself, Charlton, in spring training, and we know that gambling is legalized now all over the country.
Yeah.
How hard is it to have somebody place a bet for you against yourself, Charlton?
Yeah.
Pete Rose was banned from the Hall of Fame for betting on games when he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. People said, well, he could change pitchers, he could take a pitcher out, put a relief pitcher in, or leave a pitcher in too long and change the outcome of games.
Yeah.
Think about spring training, Charlton, when there's nothing on the line.
Yeah.
Players going out there changing the outcome of games.
Yeah, and I think this betting is part of America, just like baseball, apple pie, and some other car brands we talk about too, Big C. But when you think about baseball, and you think about not wanting people betting on spring training, do you think the hesitation on signing Bryce Harper is because the big track contract would be partly due to what happened to Kirk Cousins? You know, both played in the same city, Big C, in D.C. Neither one could lead their team into the playoff chase or even win a championship, Big C. I want to get your thoughts on being in the same city, and I know Boras must be willing to pay half of that salary that he wants him to get. Do you think because they saw two guys that are highly paid not produce results, would that be a spillover from football to baseball? Your thoughts, Big C?
Yeah, I think your cousin in Minnesota is now the Achilles heel for Bryce
He's
Harper.
not my cousin.
When people look at the product that has come out of D.C., Charlton, in the last couple of years, and especially with Kirk Cousins, he went to a team that they said was one player away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, they're in the middle of the pack of the NFL draft, Charlton, didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to make a great team better, Charlton, why are you spending that money? Kirk Cousins got the guaranteed money in Minnesota, Charlton, the most ever in an NFL contract at the time.
Yeah.
That team was just barely over a half game over 500.
Yeah.
Now, you take Bryce Harper, you do the same thing with him, and you got a team that's a half game over 500.
Yeah.
How much have you improved your franchise? Bryce Harper is going to have to settle on a 2 to 5 year contract, Charlton, with a team. He's not going to get 10 years and being realistic about the state of money in professional sports now.
Yeah.
But, when he turned down the $300 million from Washington not to return to that franchise, Charlton, that served notice to the rest of the owners in Major League Baseball. If he doesn't want $300 million, I can't guarantee him for it.
Especially you bet at 185 of the All-Star break. Speaking of guys that want to break the bank, and maybe on the downside of the career, the Giants head coach Pat Sherman, he said he wants Eli back. He wants him back for 2019. Interceptions don't matter to him, Big C. But the Giants, if they're willing to keep him for another 2 seasons in hopes of being able to draft maybe Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson when he becomes eligible for the draft. Also look at Tua out of, Alabama. Tua had, maybe he was a guy, the darling quarterback, I would say, since last year's national championship game. Came in and threw the touchdown pass to the receiver down there at Alabama. They were both on second team. Now, he was the number one guy until he lost to Lawrence in the national championship game. So both of those guys would be great fits for the Giants, you would think, because they still have a great running back in Barkley in the backfield. Your thoughts?
Well, when I look at the Giants and Pat Sherman, the coach, he made a statement today that the rest of the team on offense need to upgrade their play, that they need to play better. Now, you got a quarterback that's leading the league in interceptions in the second half, but the rest of the team is not performing.
Yeah.
You got a quarterback that only got you 5 victories, but the rest of the team is not performing. You had an outstanding defense, Charlton, holding people in check.
Yeah.
Eli could not produce offensively, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, here again, you got NFL brass blaming the black players on the team, saying that they need to step up their game.
Yeah.
I mean, you got all-pro receivers, all-pro running back, and you got a third-string quarterback playing.
Yeah.
Eli Manning is going to be a $26 million salary cap hit to the Giants this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you keep Eli this year, then you're forced to keep him next year, Charlton, just as you said. waiting on Trevor Lawrence or Tua Tagovailoa coming out of Alabama.
Yeah.
That's what the Giants are looking to do, Charlton. They don't want to draft a black quarterback with the Giants. Honestly, they don't. They don't want to have to.
Yeah.
Even though he's pro-ready, Charlton, to play right now, how are you going to have a black quarterback for the face of the NFL in New York?
Yeah.
That's what they're looking at.
Yeah, in the Big Apple, Big C. Well, they need to take a bite out of that apple, realize they haven't won in a long time. How's the league handle Bob Kraft again? I know maybe he's happy that his friend Trump, but isn't this ironic how the universe, well, you know how you take your clothing and you wash it and you let it on the clothesline so it can air dry. But when you're supposed to get all the dirt out of it, Big C, isn't it ironic? It's almost like the universe lined it up. You have Kraft and POTUS, two good friends, really good friends, Big C. Both of them have a public facade that's not real. You know, Kraft, we can say, oh, he made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake. He took two different Bentleys down to Florida, one white, one blue, Big C. He didn't get to take the chance to take the red when the red, white, and blue Bentleys that he probably got, Big C. But how will they deal with the solicitation issues and the suspension that's going to happen? It's really just a slap on the wrist, and they're already trying to make it a slap on the wrist, Big C. Your thoughts?
Legally, Charlton, he's going to get a slap on the wrist. This is what $1 million attorney will do for you.
Yeah.
And Robert Kraft did not hesitate dropping $1 million on a law firm and saying, we got to get this taken care of.
Yeah.
And so, he's not even going to have to appear at his next court appearance. His attorneys can appear for him, Charlton, so he does not have to deal with public scrutiny.
Yeah.
Not like Kevin Spacey had to do, a month ago when he had to go to a public appearance up in Maine, Charlton.
Yeah.
Robert Kraft is going to get a bypass on that.
Yeah.
But, in the end, Robert Kraft will get hit with a misdemeanor, okay? He'll plead to a lesser charge, Charlton. He'll only get probation for 3 months.
You think so?
He'll get 100 hours of community service, and he'll pay a fine, all right? That's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen to Robert Kraft. He's going to pay a fine. He's going to get 3 months probation. And he's going to get 100 hours of community service. Now, I don't know what Robert Kraft is going to do for community service.
Yeah.
Okay? Other than invite people over to clean up his yard down in Jupiter, Florida. But
maybe
that's all I can think of.
You don't see him feeling trash?
What he's going to have to deal with the league, Charlton, that's what's going to get him the most.
Yeah.
I don't think that the league will force him to sell his franchise, but I do see Goodell coming at Robert Kraft with this because you got Spygate that they've had. You got the Deflategate that they've had.
Yeah.
They're going to come at Robert Kraft with a 1-year suspension from the NFL. This is what's going to happen from Goodell's office.
Yeah.
He's going to get a 1-year suspension from the NFL. He's going to get $1 million fine from the league, Charlton, is what he's going to get with that 1-year suspension.
Yeah.
It's going to cost the Patriots some draft picks. Not in this year's draft, Charlton, but next year's draft when the suspension takes place.
Isn't it something?
That's what's going to happen to Robert Kraft. He
will
not be forced to sell the team like Jerry Richardson was forced to sell the team in Carolina, when he had his sexual misconduct charges, Charlton.
Wow. The talk in the offseason was, will Tom Brady step down because they won a Super Bowl? He said no, he wants to play to 45. And then, will Gronkowski retire? So two of the main staples of offense that they've had over their, last decade Super Bowl run, Big C, people were asking, would they step aside? Isn't it ironic that the owner may not be on the sideline next year? I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. Big C, I want to jump on the NBA. NBA is fantastic. I mean, if you don't like this sport, just watch it. You get to see the player's face. If you got the kind of money you got, you can sit on the front row where you can feel the spit. I mean, it's millionaire spit, though. It's not just some guy spitting on you in the subway, Big C. But you can hear the conversations. You can hear what the coaches are saying to the players in the huddle. You can't hear that in football. You can't hear it in baseball. I want to get on your thoughts. 10 players who went on to the NBA, superstars that were traded, because we talk about who's going to go to the Lakers, who's going to go to New York, who's going to go wherever. But give me a thought on some players. I know Bill Russell, Kobe Bryant come to mind, but there's a lot more players that went on to become superstars once they were traded, Big C. Your thoughts?
But Charlton, not only just superstars, but we're talking about NBA champions. We talk about Bill Russell, Kobe Bryant, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Dirk Nowitzki, Scottie Pippen, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Kevin Love, Rajon Rondo, Charlton. All of these players were part of big trades in the NBA. You look at the young players in the Lakers lane that were all upset about the potential of being traded, Charlton. We're talking about Hall of Fame players, Charlton, that moved franchise once they were drafted in the NBA. You think about Bill Russell, won 11 titles. Think about the St. Louis Hawks, Charlton, how they feel after they let Bill Russell go to the Celtics. Right. The Celtics were able to pull that coup, Charlton. They also got Robert Parrish from the Golden State Warriors, who went on to win 3 titles there. So you think about the Boston Celtics, Charlton, they made trades for 2 Hall of Fame centers in the NBA and produced 14 titles out of it. So it proves, Charlton, that young players can go someplace and win titles. You think about Scottie Pippen. By him being traded, Charlton, if he had never gotten traded to Chicago, he wouldn't have those 6 championship rings that he got with Jordan.
That's true. That's true.
So you think about players in Los Angeles and young guys saying, well, I don't want to be part of the trade talk. Well, the media wasn't as big back in those days, Charlton, facilitating trades in the media and telling you what organizations were going to do. But it shows the lack of professionalism of the young players in today's game, Charlton, that they're more concerned about me than what I can do with a team. You never know where you're going to win a championship. So you have to be willing to move, Charlton. And the grass may be greener on the other side, so don't count your cows before they come home.
Speaking of counting cows, Big C, even with all of those great players you talked about, Kareem started in Milwaukee. He went on to the Lakers. He wanted to get out of Milwaukee, which I think Giannis, when he comes to his senses, he'll want to get out of there too. They're up in Sacramento tonight playing the Kings at the Golden One Center. But even with all those players, when you think about guys like Russell and then Bryant, of course you look at Robert Parrish, McHale, etc. How great a player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? No matter who you bring up, LeBron James, is it Michael Jordan? Kareem has more points than anybody. And he didn't have a 3-point basket. That's why, and he helped UCLA go into 3 national championships. Would have gotten a 4th one, but they didn't let freshmen play at that time, I believe, under the great John Wooden. But think about how great, you can mention all the great players in the league. You cannot mention anyone greater than the great Kareem, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Kareem, he has it all, Charlton. Here's a guy that's when he retired from the NBA, that was in the top 5 in all statistical categories. Scoring, rebounding, block shots, assists. He did it all, Charlton. And then on top of that, all the championships he won in high school, college, and professional ranks, Charlton. And never was a scandalous story about him anywhere, Charlton.
No.
You didn't hear Kareem crying about the media and the mistreatment and trade talks and all that, Charlton. He went out and he was a professional athlete on and off of the court, Charlton. But when you look at today's young players, you think about Clyde Drexler, who went from Portland to Houston and won a championship, Charlton. There's been many great superstars over the years. Robert Horry, think about the number of championships he had in a total of 7. And he moved organizations. Bruce Bowen, Charlton. Winning with San Antonio. He didn't start out there.
No.
There's a plethora of NBA players, Charlton, that went from franchises and went on to win championships. You think about the great late Dennis Johnson, Charlton. Winning an NBA title in Seattle and then winning another NBA title in Boston, Charlton. Players move because they're professional. They understand what the job presents for them, Charlton. And so these young guys who have all these egos and no title need to learn what the agenda is all about.
That's very true. And when you think about even that great Boston Celtics franchise, last night up in Canada, they were blown out, 118-95. So after being outscored by 23 points in the second quarter, is Brad Stevens, remember, this was just about the last 2 years, he was the next great coach of the NBA, a guy that had all the marbles figured out, had everything figured out, and they went on to crown him as maybe the next great upcoming coach, Big C, in the NBA. There are coaches that have coached the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals that have gotten fired. I don't think Steve has ever been to the finals, but they can't seem to win. And I wonder, does he get too much credit for being great? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when I look at the plight of the Boston Celtics this year and I compare them to all the animosity that's been thrown at Luke Walton out on the West Coast with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens, last night was the fourth time this season, Charlton, that the Celtics have suffered a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Now, this was a team, Charlton, that made it to the Eastern Finals last year and finished second in the East. Right now, they're sitting in the 5th seat, Charlton, in the NBA East.
Yeah.
So this team has been struggling, Charlton. He's had problems in trying to stabilize a lineup, Charlton. If you think about Brad Stevens, he had a young team, Charlton, that was ascending last year.
Yeah.
He decided to put in 2 old veterans that were injured last year, Charlton.
Yep.
And it disrupt the growth of the younger players.
Yeah.
Now, everybody says that's what Luke Walton did
in LA.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But which team has digressed from last season? You think about the Lakers are basically still in the same place they were last year,
Yeah.
Charlton.
Yeah.
The Boston Celtics have digressed this year under Brad Stevens. They haven't grown at all.
No, they haven't grown at all. But, I mean, they may turn things around, but you never know. I think the game with Milwaukee going to Sacramento tonight, which plays – Sacramento played Denver close, lost by a possession up in Denver. They went to Golden State, lost by a possession. There's no reason to even explain how they lost at Minnesota, but Minnesota was 20-10 at home, so that's not really too much of a surprise. But I want to get your thoughts last night. Oklahoma City, the Thunder, Paul George maybe playing as the MVP frontrunner, perhaps. I think Giannis might get it, though. But Denver last night, with a 121-112 win over OKC, they kept the Nuggets firmly in second place in the West. And the Jokic for Denver, 36 points, 9 rebounds, and 10 assists. That's a solid game. He's not going to give it to you every night, but that's a team. They're really challenging for 2 and 3 in the West, and at least up in Denver where the air is a little bit thin, OKC tend to run out of gas. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when I look at Nikola Jokic in Denver, he's the best-kept secret in the NBA, Charlton. If he was in a major media market, he would be considered in that MVP race, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at the statistics that he put up last night, Charlton, he's been doing that for most of the season. He has led this Denver Nugget team, Charlton, to second place and firmly in a playoff position, Charlton. And everybody gives all the media notoriety to the teams in California.
Yeah.
But here's Denver, Charlton, with the second best record. And really, they led the NBA West for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And Jokic, Charlton, is a superstar at center.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everybody gives all the credit to Embiid out there in Philadelphia, Charlton.
Yeah.
But his statistics are no better than Jokic in Denver.
Yeah, I think he's doing a good job, but Denver's going to have to prove it in the playoffs. They can do great in regular season, a lot like Portland. The Trailblazers are always great, it seems to be, in the regular season. But when it really matters, sometime they'll fall. Black History Month, Big C, 2 more days on the left on the calendar. NBA matchups tonight, Houston at Charlotte. Big game for Houston. You know, they have Harden, and he's coming back, and they won a big game without Harden. We'll see how things work out with he and Paul in the lineup. Minnesota at Atlanta. You have Washington at Brooklyn, which is really coming on strong. Golden State at Miami should be a win for Golden State, but you never know. What about going to Florida that makes teams sometimes fall short? It's not the altitude because it's right there at sea level, Big C. But is it too much sand on the beach, or are there distractions down there in Florida that may cost teams sometimes? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, that salt water is heavy, Charlton. So, you know,
yeah.
Take your legs in.
Yeah.
You know, the Warriors go tonight, Charlton, on this road swing going down to Miami.
Yeah.
You know, and you can get some bad seafood down there periodically. So, I mean, ask Robert Kraft.
Yeah, ask Robert Kraft.
Got to be careful when you go to down there.
I was just thinking about
it. They're expecting Boogie Cousins not to be in the lineup tonight, Charlton. So it's going to create a lineup change for Miami. You know, will Whiteside be playing a lot of minutes tonight with Cousins not in the lineup? Because now you got small ball for the Warriors that's going to create a mismatch.
Yeah.
The Warriors are hot right now, Charlton. And so I think I'm taking care of business in Miami.
Yeah, and we got a little static in the microphone, Big C. We'll work to get that cleared up. But I like Golden State in that game, but Cousins being out, you never know. And then Chicago at Memphis. It's amazing Memphis beat L.A. Portland is at Boston. Again, we just talked about Stevens. He was talking about being the coach of the year last 2 years, Big C, but they tend to be slipping over in Boston. Detroit at San Antonio. What's happened to Coach Papa and his team? It just can't be Kawhi Leonard, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, I mean, this is a team that with a lot of young players that just haven't developed. I mean, Damian Lillard has done an excellent job of stepping in, Charlton, picking up the slack over there. LaMarcus Aldridge is up and down in the lineup, Charlton. But they just don't have that third wheel that can get the job done night in and night out in San Antonio. And you think about the 20 consecutive years of being in the playoffs with the Spurs, Charlton,
it's in trouble.
Might be coming to an end.
It might be coming to an end, Big C. Indiana at Dallas, L.A. Clippers at Utah. The altitude might be a problem. Utah's very tough at home. Milwaukee at Sacramento. That might be an upset. I don't know, but maybe if they keep Buddy Hield in the game, if they're a two-possession game with 3 minutes, they might have a better chance. New Orleans at L.A. It's amazing. Will Davis play more than 3 minutes in this game, Big C? Because he's still trying to audition, from what I understand, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the last time these two matchups came together, the Pelicans beat the Lakers.
Yeah.
Now, can lightning strike twice, Charlton, in a one-week span? And we just talked about the young guys in Lakers, Charlton, that they were upset thinking that they were going to have to go live in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're going to have to right the ship. You talk about that Sacramento-Milwaukee game, Charlton. I don't think Sacramento has a chance in that game because they're doing everything they can right now to get the Lakers into the playoffs. They can't get a 5 or 6 game separation. They have to keep them close until the Lakers can win.
That's funny. They both got purple. One's purple, black, and white. The other's purple and gold. And sometimes they forget which one they're supposed to play for. Big C. That Buddy Hield not playing in the final 3 minutes doesn't make any sense in that loss at Minnesota. Again, Shaq was traded 6 times in his career. Maybe the second, I would say maybe the third greatest Laker. I like Kareem, I like Wilt, and I like Shaq more than Kobe, even though Kobe shot the ball and made try to get out of town. Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Shaq was a professional about being traded. And like I said, this is another one of those Laker players, Charlton, that had an illustrious career that moved.
Yeah.
And, you know, you think about it, even after he left the Lakers, Charlton, he went on to win a championship in Miami.
Yeah.
And so a message to the young guys in professional sports is that you don't own a franchise.
No.
You hope to spend your entire career with one franchise, but that's becoming a rarity now in this professional sports world because of salary cap implications.
Yeah.
Back prior to free agency, Charlton, when the owners owned you as a player, you didn't have the autonomy to just go where you wish to go.
Yeah.
That you could leave whenever you wanted to leave. Now, Charlton, with this, you have free agency and you can go.
Yeah.
But up until you get to be a free agent, Charlton, you're still the property of an owner, and if they feel it's time for you to go, you have to go.
Yeah, I think that is really, it's just incredible how you got to go for it no matter what happens. I want to make a comment on players only last night. They were up in Toronto doing the Celtics game, and I told you I like players only because they don't have those anal retentive broadcasters that want to be like, you know, relax a little bit. But Isaiah Thomas, who's been maligned by so many mainstream media, calling into radio stations saying, you know, we don't really like Isaiah Thomas. I had no idea that Isaiah Thomas was part of the reason that the NBA expanded into Canada with the Toronto Raptors. And also, you know, they had the team over in Vancouver, the Vancouver Grizzlies. But I learned by players only, I didn't hear this on mainstream, that he had a lot to do with the bringing of the NBA as an ambassador of the league into Canada. And one of the owners of it, but also with the Indiana University, you know, with Isaiah Thomas, who played under the great Bob Knight. That knowledge would not have been talked about had it not been a players-only broadcast. Big C, I had no idea, but the black man has also helped build Canada, not just the Underground Railroad. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you listen to these anal retentive broadcasters that are on television, and they're bothered by having athletes on programs that are talking because these athletes don't look like them.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem that you have. They would rather have a white guy on the television that sounds like them and looks like them and couldn't play the game like them. But, you know, when you get the insight from a lot of different black athletes, and they're all over the networks everywhere.
Yeah.
The reason why the networks put them in place, Charlton, is because they give you professional insight from a player's perspective. That's what they're doing. They're not trying to be Bob Costas. They're not trying to be Al Michaels. They're not trying to be Reese Davis, Charlton.
Yeah.
They are out there being players on the court. and in the booth, Charlton.
Yep.
They're having a conversation like sitting in a barbershop. Anybody who's ever gone to get their hair cut,
Yep.
and most guys are getting their hair cut by women now, so they wouldn't understand the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, when you go to an old-time barbershop, when there was nothing but guys up in there,
Yeah.
watch a scene from a movie called Coming to America with Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
And Arsenio Hall.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, James Earl Jones.
John Amos was in there.
James Amos.
Yeah.
Go to the barbershop scene in Coming to America and
Yep.
listen to those guys in the barbershop talk.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody who went to those barbershops understood everything that they were saying.
Yeah.
They may not articulate the language the way you want to hear it,
Right.
but I'd also like to see how you would do in Zaire or Mexico articulating their language.
Yeah. And one more thing about Isaiah Thomas, too. The man has accomplished. He's been a coach in the NBA. He was an All-American coming out of high school, All-American at Indiana, helped win national championship, helped also win NBA titles, got into coaching, got into broadcasting. That's from an African-American that doesn't fit the mold with white broadcasters, Big C. But he's done so much for himself, and he's still a young man. I would just hope that more people can let that story be known, because it's not about shading up and dribbling. That he's part of the reasons that the Toronto Raptors are actually in Canada. So congratulations to the great Isaiah Thomas. I love when I learn things from smart people. I want to also jump down to the world of high school basketball, since we're talking about Indiana. High school basketball. A high school basketball announcer criticized a player for a dunk at the end of a game. He resigned. And now the player got teed up for it. He'd be called a jackass and, stayed classy by the announcer. The announcer didn't show a lot of class whatsoever, but that's also Indiana, where they take basketball really serious. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, and when I heard the words of that broadcaster, Charlton, calling a high school player a jackass,
Yeah.
you think about the classness. And let's be honest, Charlton, this guy was white.
Yeah.
This was a white broadcaster, Charlton, making that statement. Now, you think about it, if it had been a black broadcaster making that statement, Charlton, it would have been national news everywhere.
Yeah.
It would have been opening up every sports show across the country. But not only that, Charlton, the most egregious part about it, the broadcaster was betting on the game.
Yeah.
Because
Really?
he said the team didn't even cover the point spread.
Wow.
Think about that. You're putting point spreads on high school games, Charlton. You and I have touched on what the Pandora's box would be when the Supreme Court listed
Yeah.
betting across this country.
Yeah.
Now there are betting lines on high school games, Charlton.
Yep.
And you got broadcasters talking about that the team didn't even cover the point spread because they got a technical on.
Yeah, that's incredible, Big C. I mean, we all love sports, and I hope that people can just realize, let people have fun at a game. If they're going to dunk at basketball, some kids are not going to go on to the college level. That might have been his best chance to get that in. And if you don't want them dunking, just play better defense, Big C. Tony Harris made history Tuesday, become the first female football player at a skill position to sign a letter of intent, accepting a letter, Central Methodist University in Missouri, 5'7" and 164 pounds, safety from Detroit, has played football at East Los Angeles College in California the last 2 seasons. Women are all over the place, from refereeing to coaching. There's some women on NBA coaching staff. I think you could do anything, not based on your gender, but based on your ability. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about this happening during Black History Month, a proud moment in the history of African Americans to have the first female non-ticketed positional player to sign a college letter of intent, Charlton. This young lady grew up in Detroit. She played at East Los Angeles Community College for the past 2 years, playing in the secondary. That meant, Charlton, that she was an impactful player. But you think about the heights that African-American women have raised the bar for other women in society, Charlton, over the decades.
Yeah.
You think about Monique Davis, Charlton, just a few short years ago, pitching in the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
Striking out boy players, Charlton, went out and dominated. This young lady, she's gone on to play college baseball on the females team, Charlton. But you think about this, Charlton, an African-American, once again, crossing the barrier, Charlton, in sports, into male athletics, Charlton, and especially during Black History Month, Charlton, making history again.
Yeah, making history. And I love when I can see, young players just do things. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't, especially in the age of the Me Too movement. If you think you can do something, go out and do it. Games in college basketball that are being played today. Number 17, Maryland at Penn State. We have Georgia Tech at number 2, Virginia. And then Tennessee, number 7 at Ole Miss. Number 8, Houston. They're playing East Carolina. So a lot of good games going on around the world in college basketball. DePaul's at Georgetown. I remember the days when Georgetown was so dominant. Would love to see them rise back to prominence. And then you have Richmond at George Mason, among many others. But I want to get on last night. The Duke Blue Devils, they went to Blacksburg, Virginia. And they left with a loss, Big C. Their second loss in 3 games, 77-72. Will they take another fall in the national rankings, or will they consider that an anomaly? I think that's a program that's starting to shake down a little bit, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think this is going to hit them and drop them down even more in the rankings, Charlton. Going into last night's game, they were ranked number 3 in the country. I think this would fall down to at least number 8 and number 9, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're not even out of the top 10.
Yeah.
But Duke is a marketable team, and that's the reason why they have a slow fall when they do lose, Charlton. But they went into Blacksburg. They lost to a ranked team in Virginia Tech, Charlton.
Yep.
A team that they had beaten earlier in the season. But, without Zion Williams, the most marketable player, Charlton, they struggled in losing 2 of the last 3 games.
Yeah, and I think when you think about Coach Krzyzewski, Big C, obviously they want to get into the tournament. Right now, you're just trying to stay healthy and get into their ACC tournament. And once they do that, then we'll see what they're really made of. Because if you lose, you're gone. You don't have another chance to even – well, if they lost the ACC tournament, they would still get into March Madness because they're that good of a program. We talk about women and men and opportunity. We want Title IX to really exist. It's important. But even at the high school level, a high school referee forfeited a semifinal match rather than wrestle a girl in Colorado State semifinals, 106-pound class. She was 23-3 on the season. But you have sometimes where people will just forfeit for whatever reason because they don't want to have their, ego hurt, etc. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I myself, this is a tough question.
Yeah.
And I understand when they talk about girls can compete. We just talked about the first female athlete getting a college scholarship to play football.
Yeah.
But when you look at wrestling is a physical and total contact sport, Charlton.
That's true.
And you think about a male who has been socially sensitive, Charlton, to dealing with a female.
Yeah.
How can you go out there consciously, Charlton, and handle her like you were handling a man, physically?
Yeah.
Because there's things that's going to come back at you. It's not about losing, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's about you being sensitive to the other sex, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when you're in wrestling, it's full contact in every way. You're groping and grappling a person, Charlton, in various body weights.
Yeah.
And so I can understand the young man's position, Charlton, is that I don't want to put myself in a position because what I looked at that, Charlton, is the ultimate respect for women.
Yeah.
Not a football against another athlete. It's ultimate respect towards a woman that you shouldn't touch a woman in certain ways, Charlton.
Yeah.
Even in physical competition, is that certain things off area.
Yeah.
And if you've ever wrestled and been put in that position, Charlton, you're going to find yourself in compromise.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to put himself in that position, Charlton.
Yeah, and I understand, too. You can't always have everything you want in this great country of ours. But we know it's great. I mean, everybody wants to compete about something. It's not like you're playing, tennis. We've had some great, was it Billie Jean King? So she could beat a man at playing tennis. I'm sure Serena Williams could beat a lot of men if they had the chance to line that up, Big C. But everybody knows, it's all fair in the war. I just believe that if you give people the chance, whether it's track and field.
But could you, Charlton, could you see yourself wrestling a woman in a full-out wrestling match?
Yeah.
In a Roman Greco match? Could you see yourself grappling a woman, grabbing her in the ways that you're going to grab another man in that match, Charlton, and feel comfortable with it?
Well, I was beaten up by a girl when I was a little boy, Big C, and she didn't care if I was a boy. She whipped me anyway. I think she's about 10 years older than I was, and I'm not too embarrassed to tell that story. But I do understand we've got to be sensitive about today's times. Speaking of sensitive, Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, 2 big things happened today with the president being out of the country. Michael Cohen testified in front of Congress today in an open Senate hearing. Princeton University, Charlton, had their first day of spring football practice. For dinner tonight, Charlton, they're having prime rib. Ironically, I guess there was no McDonald's, Burger Kings, and Wendy's open in the local areas, so they were able to be able to eat a meal that is champion in Charlton, and not go through a drive-through window.
Yeah, well, I understand what it's like, and I'm sure they'll enjoy it because at least it's fresh, and it's more than you can fit in a cup. Speaking of fitting more than a cup, you can handle your cup will run us over every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911. Because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.